Welcome to episode 191 of the Fully In It podcast. In life, there will be times that your path will take you a different direction than those around you. You'll have a choice to make. Do what everyone else is doing, or carve out a new path. When you're a parent, these decisions can feel even harder to make, but often the path less taken is the most rewarding. Whether you're thinking of moving, choosing an alternate lifestyle for your family, maybe homeschooling, or even just growing a business when none of your other mom friends get it, it may be time to swim upstream. If this sounds intriguing, let's dig in together. Welcome to the Fully In It podcast with Kate Saffel, a show for powerful moms growing life-changing businesses while showing up intentionally for their families. I teach you how to create a family-first and profitable business in less time by leveraging simple strategy, mom life-friendly systems, and above all, the mindset of going fully in it. You ready? So I originally had another podcast topic completely prepared, and then I woke up and I was laying in bed and I was thinking about what it's like to go against the grain, especially as a family, especially today when everybody has an opinion. Everybody wants to tell you how you should do things. And I thought about my own life and all of the decisions that I've made that have been a bit counterculture. They've just been out of the box. They've been different. And my life has been so much richer, so much more meaningful because of those decisions that Kirk and I made for our family together. And I know that if you're listening to this episode, you may be going against the grain already, or you're pondering a decision that will have you choosing maybe an alternate path for you and your family. You're kind of dipping your toe in and you're thinking about it, but maybe you haven't fully committed yet. Wherever you find yourself in that spectrum, I hope that this episode encourages you and gives you some things to think about. Now, as I was writing this episode out and thinking about what I wanted to say, and I kept saying the phrase against the grain, I was like, okay, but what does that actually mean? We use that, right? I'm sure you've heard that before. We use that phrase, but I was like, okay, what is the origin of it? So this comes from the woodworking world, where someone would work against the natural wood grain, either sanding or cutting in the opposite direction. And that causes splinters and can make it more difficult to finish the piece. So that term came from the woodworking world, and now we just kind of generally use that to mean going against commonly held beliefs or practices of a society. Now, I'll be honest, the way we're living now is probably the least countercultural or out of the box. Kirk and I are living a pretty normal lifestyle. I mean, minus the fact that we homeschool and I am an entrepreneur. Those things, I guess, are still a little bit out of the box. I think that we're just so used to them at this point that they seem pretty normal. But previously, gosh, we've done a lot of out of the box things that left people scratching their heads and thinking, did Kirk and Kate lose their minds? So, for example, when I was pregnant with our third, Kirk recorded a full music EP. And when our son was 6 months old, he had an EP release party to like 200 people in this historic theater in Michigan. And I was there helping him with, our baby on my chest. People were like, what are you guys doing? Like, this is so weird. We've also, as you probably know, we've traveled all over the US multiple times in our RV for long stretches of time, meaning like full-time living in the RV and doing life in, 200 square feet, 300 square feet, something super small, as we've had different rigs over the years. And that one really shocked a lot of people. I remember the first time we did it was in 2018. And at that time, Kirk was still a speech pathologist and he was taking travel medical rotations around the United States. And that was kind of how we were able to do that lifestyle initially because I didn't have my business yet. That was when I started my business, was that year that we were traveling, but I hadn't launched it yet. I was still doing Cohesive Home with Melissa, and that was kind of like my thing, my side project. But we would end up in these RV parks with retirees, and you're more like traditional RVer kind of person, typically, retired and older. And they would have these giant rigs, like just massive for two people. And we had this little one because I was really inspired by the van life movement and minimalism. And we just wanted to see how little we could live with and if that would make us happier. It was kind of like a little experiment within our family. And it really did. Like, I'll be honest with you, living with very little is probably the happiest I always am. And I know someday Kirk and I we'll probably do the van life thing, just the two of us, when the kids are older and out of the house. But we would get well-meaning, retirees come up to us and they're like, are you guys okay? Like, are you living in that? Like, and they just couldn't wrap their brain around a family choosing to. And I would say, oh, well, my husband's doing, these medical rotations and he's working at the local hospital down the road. And then they'd be okay with it because he was a professional. But like, I think initially they had in their minds that we were like these unemployed hippies, and, the lines can sometimes be blurry. So that was one of the things that we did. And then, we traveled again a second time when my business was our primary income and Kirk had quit his job and he became a stay-at-home dad. That's also unconventional, for dads to be home. And he had 2.5 years home with our kiddos. And gosh, that sure spoiled them, because even now they're like, oh, Dad, you work so much. And we're like, no, this is just like he works a normal amount. But they were so used to him being home with them every day and cooking, and he would homeschool them. He took them on hikes. Last night we went for a walk around our neighborhood and there was dark clouds in the sky, like kind of in the distance. And the kids were worried because it's Florida, so storms come out of nowhere. They were worried that it was going to start like lightning and thundering, and we were outside, and understandable, of course. But they started recounting this story about hiking with Dad and how they were in this canyon along a river and it started storming and they had to figure out where to take shelter. And I was like, where was I? Like, I don't remember this story. And they were like, oh, Mom, you were on a call. Like, I was on a coaching call. I was back at the camper working, and he had taken them out hiking. So they have all these wonderful, exciting, thrilling memories with Kirk of the adventures that they've had. And it's a good thing I don't know all of them, because I'm sure, I would be like, what did you do with the kids? Because he and I have different, we have different ideas of what's safe and whatnot. I mean, he's always safe with the kids, but I think his limits are a little bit different than mine. So those things, have been out of the box for us. We've homeschooled our kids since 2015. And I recognize we're going on a decade of this. Like, how? I don't even know. So all of those ways that we have lived out of the box has really given me a deep understanding of what you may be going through if you are either considering making some unconventional choices or you're already living them. I get you. There's very little that I bat an eye at that I'm like, oh, that's weird. I just don't, because living in a way that maybe society sees as unusual has given me compassion for other people who are making intentional choices for their families. So let's talk a little bit more about what this actually looks like. So I wanted to give some examples of what might be some ways that you would do life differently. This is obviously not conclusive, but I was just kind of brainstorming, and I was thinking about this community and what may be some of the choices you're considering making. Maybe you're considering homeschooling because the schools in your area aren't performing well, or maybe your child just needs something different than the school system can give. That is still an out-of-the-box choice. Maybe you're considering a move because you want to be closer to family, or maybe you want to live farther from family. I don't know. Or you want to live in a new climate or a lifestyle, or you want to make some kind of nomadic type move where you're traveling around the world or you're traveling around your country and you're doing that by boat, RV, train, I don't know, plane. What are all the different forms of transportation? I know families who have done all of them. Maybe you are pregnant or you're thinking about getting pregnant. And even in the birth world, there are levels of what is considered a normal type of birth and what is more outside the box. Even for us right now, like I said, we're kind of living, I would say, fairly normally at this point. But even having a fourth child, I never thought that would seem out of the box. But the world, in my opinion, and you can let me know your thoughts, it is becoming less and less child friendly. I really feel that. And it could be because of where I live. I don't know. But we go out in public. I go out with my 4 kiddos and people stare at us. I took them to the grocery store a couple of days ago, and we have this sweet little grocery store. It's actually by our old neighborhood, and it's small, but they have really great produce, and I like it because it's small and I can kind of get in and out. You know what I mean? So we went there, and I had the baby strapped to my chest, and then the 3 other kiddos, and we take up space. And my kids, I've really worked with them because we homeschool, we do life together every day. So, they've got good manners and they know how to behave in public. And so they were helping pick out produce and they were really involved. But I probably got no less than 5 comments about my children while we were there. And if it wasn't comments, it was just looks, like stares. And it's so interesting because, again, I never thought having 4 kids would be unusual, but having 4 kids, I think it feels like a turning point. Like 3 was acceptable. 4 is kind of, you've got a big family now. So if you are making the leap into an unconventional lifestyle, or you're making an out of the box choice, even just starting a business is one, it's interesting to me that people have had businesses since the beginning of time, and yet if you start one, people will still seem shocked because I think in our culture today, it's expected for you to have just a normal 9-to-5 job where you are employed by someone else. So if you were to say start your business, that's one thing. If you were to leave your full-time job for said business, that's an even bigger thing. And people would probably have thoughts about that. So let's talk about what those challenges are that you may face. The first one I kind of already named is what people think of you. People will have opinions. We have received over the years lots of people's opinions. I don't always want to receive them, but people tend to want to give you advice if they see you choosing a life path that is different than the one they chose for themselves. It is common for people to believe that their path is the right path, and understandably so. If that's what they've done and they've never tried anything else, they're going to think like, this is the way. This is the way that you should do it. It doesn't actually make that true. However, people are going to have thoughts. They're either going to vocalize them to you or they're going to think them about you. What I want to remind you of is that you don't have control over other people's thoughts. You don't. And it's not your responsibility to control other people's thoughts about you. Like, try to get them to think differently about you. Try to change their mind. When people gave us their opinions about the things we were doing, like, for example, the first time we left to travel full time, so many people were aghast that we would uproot our children and do this vagabond lifestyle. Like, they just, they probably didn't think very kind thoughts about us as parents. And I just had to say, okay, thanks for sharing your opinion. We're going to do it anyway. And there was a part of me, because I'm like a recovering people pleaser. And there was a part of me that wanted to explain and over explain. And my encouragement to you is that you don't have to explain anything to anyone. You don't, especially if they are expressing negative thoughts and beliefs towards you. You don't owe them anything. Look for the people who are happy for you, who will cheer you on. These are your people, okay? These are the ones that you want to talk to about your plans. One of the other challenges you may face is what you think of you. This has to do with the stories you make up in your mind about the path you've chosen. The first time that we traveled full time when we were actually on the road, I was shocked at how negative my thoughts were about myself. I had lots of thoughts around like, oh, you are a bad parent. Like, oh, why'd you make this choice? It was so weird. It was like all of the conventionally held beliefs that maybe I thought other people had were showing up in my brain as my own thought process. And I really had to work through those and question them so that it didn't hold me back, so it didn't influence the way I experienced one of the most wonderful seasons of our family life. So be aware of the stories that you make up in your mind. Another challenge is endurance, the ability to stay the course until you get to the other side. Making any major life changes take time. It's not typically a fast overnight thing, whether that's starting a business, selling a house, quitting a job. You may get the idea and the decision is quick, but the execution of it could take a while. Growing a successful business is not an overnight thing. It takes time. So you have to be willing to stick with it. You have to be resilient. You have to persevere. And if those are qualities that you don't have in yourself, that can make it difficult. I think we live in a society that's very, give it to me now. Like Amazon, ship it to my door. I want it tomorrow. We don't like to wait. You know, if you get to go to Disney World and it's a 2-hour wait for a ride, like, it's awful. I think we need to get more used to waiting, to being patient, to accepting that life is not always a prime delivery away, especially if it's something meaningful to you. It's worth the wait. Another challenge that you're going to face is that you're going to probably need to figure it out as you go. You're not going to have a perfect roadmap, right? So you're going to have to trust that you can figure it out, that you are the kind of person who is resourceful and can find her way. And it's so helpful now. I mean, we've got the internet, it's full of resources, but you're going to still be the one taking the daily actions. You're going to be the one pushing this forward. Nobody else is going to do that for you. So in the face of all of these challenges, and I'm sure there's probably half a dozen more that I didn't name, but that's okay. I don't want to totally freak you out. But why would you choose to go against the grain? Why would you choose to do something so unconventional that it's uncomfortable? Why would you do that to yourself? I mean, you don't have to. Keep in mind, many people live incredibly happy lives just following the plan, and that's okay. But again, there may be a reason why you would choose this. Let's see if one of these is for you. So the first one is because it matches your values. And you want to stay in integrity with what you say you value. So for example, if you say that you value family time and being together, but you're in a job that has you working 60 hours a week, that has you out of integrity with what you say that you value. And so you may need to make a decision that feels kind of scary and out of the box so that you can get back in line with your family's values. You may also choose this path because there isn't another path forward besides the unconventional one. It's the only way that you can see to move forward. And that may feel scary, especially if you didn't feel like you're intentionally choosing. You're like, well, this is the only option. I think back in 2019, Kirk unexpectedly quit his speech pathology job. And he had been doing that. He had been working as a speech pathologist for a decade. And he was having some health issues that were negatively impacting his work. And he felt like he was going to get fired because of it. And we made a very fast decision. It was like the day before our wedding anniversary. We made the decision for him to quit instead of getting fired. And we had zero backup plan. We didn't know what the path forward was, but we knew it wasn't him staying in that job. And if you find yourself in a situation like that, I get it. And it's hard and it can feel really scary. But now we can look back, right? That was quite a while ago. And we're so grateful that he got out of the hospital system when he did. Like, he didn't have to go through COVID in the hospital system. He wasn't in that line of work anymore. And I just, if you have gone through that, if you're a medical professional, that was so challenging and so hard. And so, again, sometimes doors close and you may think like, why me? Why this? Why now? And it feels unfair. But as someone who has lived through one of those situations, I can tell you wholeheartedly, this may be the best thing to happen to you. So don't lose heart and don't lose hope. You may also choose this path because you feel spiritually called to the path and you don't want to ignore it. Have you ever gotten one of those nudges, like in your spirit, and you just feel like, oh gosh, this is really what I need to do. It's what I should do. You should listen to that. It can be hard to ignore that if it keeps coming up over and over again and you know that you're called to it, but you ignore it, it's not going to go away. You may also choose a different path because it is just what's best for your family. And you just know that in your heart. You know that this is what your family needs, even if it's hard and challenging to move into a different way of doing life. You know that ultimately it's going to be better for your family. And then finally, you may do it just because this is who you are. It's who you are as a person. You want to live a full-bodied life. You want to say yes when the adventure presents itself. You don't want to get to the end of your life and look back with regret and think, what if I had said yes? What if I went all the way with that decision? So living in a regret-free way can be incredibly empowering, and you know if this is for you. So I wanted to give you some encouragement for getting started and then staying the course, because remember what I said, it can take time and you don't want to lose heart in the process. So the first one I'm going to offer, you've heard me say a million times on this podcast, you need to nurture your vision for why you're choosing this path and why it matters so much to you. Make sure that you know that and that you focus on it every single day. Surround yourself as best as you can with other people choosing a similar path. This will help you so much to feel less alone. So, for example, you could join a homeschool community. For us, we joined a homeschool community, and it was such a game changer. Truly, it was like the best decision we could have ever made to be surrounded by people who get why we're homeschooling and the way that we do it. You could also, like, let's say you're starting a business, right? Joining a community of other entrepreneurs. You could come into my mastermind of mom CEOs who will get you and support you because they're going through it with you. There's so many online communities. There may be in-person ones. Maybe you just know someone. You have a friend who could mentor you and guide you. Get that support. And this could be in the form of taking a course. It could be hiring a coach. It could even be reading books. Back in what year was that? 2017, when we were thinking about traveling full time, I started reading one of Jen Sincero's books. And that was what I needed at the time to feel bold enough to make that leap. Because again, like everyone around me they were stay-at-home moms or they were working moms, but they were definitely not full-time traveling moms. Like that wasn't a thing. And I needed someone in my ear, even in the form of a book, saying, hey, you can do this and you can be brave enough to go after what matters to you. Kirk and I always looked for wisdom from people who were farther ahead than us. We needed to know that there was a way forward, even if their path looked slightly different than us. We just looked for those people who were like the outliers, the renegades, the dreamers, and tapped their wisdom. Another thing that I want to encourage you in is to not over-research. And you know if this is you. It's helpful to know what to do, but overdoing it can lead to confusion and overwhelm and make it take longer. So as an example, I know a new homeschool mom and she'd gotten herself totally worked up over all the different curriculum options and homeschool learning paths. And I think her child was like 6. And I told her, I was like, your kiddo is so young. You don't even have to do that much at this age. Just take it like 1 year at a time. She felt like she had to have it all figured out, like, for the rest of his schooling years right then. And that's just not the case. So sometimes it's okay to take it one step at a time. You also want to have a plan for the hard days when you're full of doubt. You will hit a wall. There will be points where you think, why did I do this? Like, what was I thinking? Don't turn on yourself. Don't let your doubt overcome you. It's helpful now to come up with a plan of what will you do when the doubt comes around? What will you tell yourself so that you stay on the course and you don't give up? Be careful who you share your plans with. Like I had mentioned earlier, we had many people try to talk us out of our various plans and dreams over the years, thinking that they knew better than us. When you're especially in the dreaming phase, just be so cautious because there are people out there who are dream killers and they will try to caution you and tell you to be realistic and stop you because they think that they're protecting you, but really they're trying to protect you from their own fears because they couldn't do what you're going to do. So just be wise about who you share your plans with and who you seek counsel from. And then this is just a fun one that is always helpful, and that is to create a vision board or some kind of visual that you can look at daily to remind yourself where you're heading. I was talking to a client about this the other day because she has a really big goal of creating $1 million business. And I was talking to her about how impactful it can be just to have like a vision board on your computer background. And so that every time you open your laptop to work, you see that image. And for me, like I've done that the last couple of years and it's like scary how scary, right? How pretty much everything on my vision board came true. Like what a blessing. You can also make it the screensaver on your phone. I've done that as well. And these are just tools to help keep you encouraged and on the path and reminding you why you're willing to do what it is that you're going to do. Okay, my dear, I hope that this episode has encouraged you. I hope it's reminded you that if you are choosing to live an out-of-box life, that there's actually nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. For whatever reason, this is what you've been called to do, and you can trust in it. So go forward with courage and confidence. Reach out to me. Let me know what's on your heart, what you're working toward. I would love to hear. You can email me hello@happierInmotherhood.com. Make sure that you get on my email list because this is how I, can send you encouragement and tips about entrepreneurship, motherhood, living intentionally, right? Creating the home life you want. and it comes straight to your inbox. So you can sign up using the link that is in the show notes on whatever podcast app that you're using. And again, thank you so much for being here with me, for listening. I cannot wait to see what it is that you create for you and your family. I know I will just be cheering you on. Okay, I will see you on next week's episode.